the window that watched the war leave, but never closed its eyes. I have always believed that certain objects hold more memory than people. We, with our fragile hearts and unreliable minds, are often desperate to forget what hurts. But objects, they do not have the same mercy. They hold, they absorb, they witness, okay? And among all objects, nothing seems to carry more memory than a window. The window in my room is older than my voice, older than my scars, older than the rhythm of the lullabies that once cradled me to sleep. It has watched me learn to walk, stumble, fall, rise again. It has watched seasons change like moods, the summer light pressing hot upon the glass, the autumn leaves gathering in slow spirals on the stone street, the winter frost sketching delicate veins like tired hands, and the spring rains sliding down its surface like tears. But above all, it has watched the war. I do not know when a window learns to remember. Perhaps it begins in silence, when the air grows heavy with the unspoken. Perhaps it begins the first time a scream reaches the glass and shatters against it without sound. Perhaps it begins when eyes avoid meeting each other in the street, but the window does not look away. Whatever the moment, I am certain that mine remembers more than I ever could. The first day of the war was not marked by explosions or flames in our small town. It was marked by absence. The baker's son did not whistle as he carried bread baskets across the street. The school bell did not ring. My father's laughter did not fill the hallway at dusk. Absence arrived like a thief, and it sat heavily, unseen but undeniable. The window, however, noticed everything. Its stillness was not empty, but brimming. It's like a jar filled with air that could suffocate if you dared to open it. I sat beside it, my knees drawn to my chest, watching the road. Dust lifted occasionally, as if someone had just walked by, but no one did. Only shadows stretched longer than usual, playing tricks on tired eyes. The glass, polished by years of breath and rain, reflected my face back at me, small, uncertain, trembling at the edges. Behind my reflection, though, lay a world beginning to unravel. The soldiers came days later, boots striking cobblestones, rifles carried carelessly like burdens too familiar. They did not look at me, though I pressed my forehead against the glass. Their eyes were not on houses, but on horizons. They smelled of metal and sweat, and they carried silence heavier than their weapons. When they passed, the air felt thinner. My chest ached as though it had been robbed of something essential, and through it all, the window watched, not blinking, not breaking, simply absorbing. There was a boy among them, not much older than me then. His uniform sagged on his shoulders, his jaw still soft, his gaze still reaching for something gentle. He glanced, only once, in the direction of my window. I felt his eyes brushed mine like a gust of wind. He did not smile, he did not frown, he simply looked. Then he was gone, swallowed by the march, another thread in a fabric unraveling far beyond my comprehension. Yet the window held that glance for me. Even when I tried to forget, it lingered in the glass, etched faintly as if his reflection had been left behind. After they disappeared, the town grew smaller, walls leaned inward, roofs seemed lower, streets shorter. Mothers whispered in doorways. Fathers pressed newspapers flat on kitchen tables, eyes darting as if the ink itself might accuse them. Children still played, but their games changed. Stones became grenades, sticks became rifles, and laughter carried a nervous pitch. Nights were the hardest. I would lie awake on my narrow bed, the window glowing faintly with moonlight. Sometimes the glass reflected me, pale and restless. Sometimes it showed only darkness, a void so complete it seemed capable of swallowing me whole. And sometimes, worst of all, it held shadows, not my own, a silhouette passing outside, a figure too still to be human, smoke twisting upward, though no fire burned. Whether these were real or born of my weary mind, I cannot say. But the window never argued. It showed, and it remembered. Then came the trains. Our station had once been cheerful, merchants calling prices, children chasing pigeons, travelers with dust on their boots and hope in their eyes. But when the trains changed their cargo, the air shifted forever. No longer wheat, no longer letters, no longer supplies. Instead, silence boarded those wagons, heavy and thick. The window in my room could not see the station, but it could hear. The sound carried across the valley, wheels clanging, metal grinding, whistles blowing with a hollow cry. I pressed my ear to the glass, and I swore I felt it tremble. One morning, after such a train had passed in the night, I noticed something on the road beneath the window, a cap. It was small, torn, dust-covered. I imagined it once belonged to that boy with the too large uniform, or perhaps to another boy entirely nameless, faceless, consumed by the march of history. My hand hovered when I bent to pick it up, but I could not touch it. Some things burned the fingers even without flame. I left it there. The window, however, stared at it for days, refusing to let it vanish from memory. I began to think of the window as a companion, spoke to us sometimes, in whispers too soft for even the walls to hear. I told it when I was afraid, when I missed my father's laughter, when I wondered whether silence could bruise. The glass never replied, but it held my words as if tucking them between its panes. When the wind blew, I fancied it was the window exhaling my secrets back into the world, scattering them harmlessly among the trees. As months passed, the war deepened, houses emptied, the church bells remained silent. Letters arrived less often, and when they did, they carried more weight than paper should. A neighbor's son would not return. A husband had vanished. A brother had fallen. Grief grew common, ordinary, like bread or water. But even as faces changed, the window did not. It stood steady, absorbing each loss without flinching. Sometimes I wondered if the window had eyelids, would it close them? Could it bear the weight of so much sorrow? Or was it condemned, like me, to watch endlessly, never permitted the mercy of forgetting? There were nights when I thought I saw the boy again, not in flesh, but in the shimmer of moonlight on glass. His eyes lingered there, calm yet unyielding. I blinked, and he vanished. But the impression remained, as if the window was trying to remind me, I was here, you saw me. Do not erase me. The war ended, they said, on a morning without fanfare, number, parades, no music, no banners, just silence. The same silence that had begun it, now closing it, like a circle drawn tightly around us all. People emerged slowly from their houses, blinking in the weak light. They spoke cautiously, as though words might still betray them. I sat by the window, as I always had. The road outside was empty. The torn cap had long since blown away, but the window, it watched, did not relax, did not soften, did not forget. It stared outward as if the war had not truly left, only stepped aside for a moment, and perhaps it was right, because even now, years later, I sit here, older, slower, my hands lined with time, and the window still gazes with unclosed eyes, holds every memory, the boots, the trains, the shadows, the glance of a boy whose name I never knew. It has not forgiven nor forgotten. And sometimes, when the night is especially still, I place my palm against the glass and whisper, "Thank you for remembering when I no longer can." It does not answer, okay, but I feel its silence, and in that silence, I find sleep. The war had left, they said. Papers were signed, borders were redrawn, guns had been stacked into piles and locked away in warehouses that smelled of rust and mold. But for those of us who had watched from behind our windows, the war had not ended. It had only changed its costume. It no longer wore uniforms. It now wore silence. It no longer marched with boots. It now walked softly through memories, and in my small room with the same tired bed and the same faithful window, I began to learn how long a war can remain even after it has left. The street outside did not fill quickly. People returned like hesitant shadows, testing each stone as if the earth might collapse beneath them. The market reappeared, but without its laughter. The school reopened, but without the same chalk-dusted enthusiasm. The church rang its bell again, but the sound seemed thinner, as if it too carried exhaustion. And through it all, the window watched. I spent hours sitting before it, my elbows resting on the sill, my chin balanced on folded hands. The glass had grown faintly scratched over the years, its clarity dimmed by dust and smoke. Yet, still, it reflected everything faithfully, refusing to betray its role as witness. Sometimes I wondered whether the glass would eventually grow tired, whether it would one day crack beneath the weight of so much memory. But no, it held steady. It always held steady. I began to notice how different the road looked now, not because the stones had changed, but because eyes no longer met upon it. Neighbors walked past each other with polite nods instead of warm greetings. Children no longer shouted each other's names across the square. Lovers no longer kissed openly beneath the linden tree. Everything was smaller, quieter, as if joy itself had been rationed. One morning, as I pressed my palm to the glass, I realized the window was colder than ever before. Not with winter's chill, but with something deeper, the kind of cold that comes from distance, from separation, from being left alone with truths no one else will acknowledge. I whispered to it, "Do you also feel abandoned? Do you, too, wonder if silence is the heaviest inheritance of all?" The window, of course, did not reply, but its stillness seemed to agree. Days turned to weeks, weeks into months. The seasons cycled, stubborn in their rhythm, as though nature had not noticed the shift in human hearts. Spring flowers bloomed, but fewer were picked to be carried home. Summer heat pressed, but no one lingered in the square to sing late into the night. Autumn painted leaves gold, but the laughter of harvest festivals was missing. Winter brought snow, and children built figures in the drifts, but their voices carried caution, not freedom. The windows saw it all, and so did I. I began writing in a small notebook. Each night, before sleep, I scribbled down what the window and I had seen. A woman clutching a letter too tightly. A man staring too long at the empty road. A child refusing to play with a certain toy because it reminded him of a lost brother. The pages filled quickly, as if the pen itself was desperate to keep pace with memory. But no matter how much I wrote, I knew the window remembered more. My hand could falter, my ink could fade, but the glass did not. Sometimes I dreamed that the window would speak. In my sleep, I imagined it had a voice, not loud, not human, but soft, like wind passing through reeds. In these dreams it told me, "I will remember for you. You are not alone in this archive of shadows." I woke, often with tears, though whether from comfort or sorrow I could not say. As years passed, the road outside changed again. New faces appeared, children born after the war, their eyes too young to carry its weight. They played freely, their laughter unfamiliar yet welcome. Merchants once again filled the market with color and noise. A new family moved into the house across the street, their shutters freshly painted, their curtains bright bouquet. And yet, beneath this surface, there remained the quiet knowledge that everything rested upon a fragile silence. One crack, one reminder, and the war would stir awake. I remembered the first time someone painted the words "Never Again" on the wall near the square. The letters were uneven, trembling, but bold. People paused to look. Some nodded, some frowned, some walked past quickly, unwilling to linger. I stood at my window, and stared at the words until the moon rose. The glass reflected them back at me, ghostly, as if carved not on the wall, but on the window itself. I touched the pane gently and whispered, "Will they keep this promise? Or will you, once again, be forced to watch?" The window, silent as always, did not answer, but I felt the heaviness of its gaze. I aged, of course. My hair silvered, my hands grew lined. The boy who once pressed his forehead to the glass became a man whose back ached with each dawn. Yet the window did not change. Its wood frame weathered. Its glass held scratches, but its eyes, for I had come to think of them as eyes never dimmed. They remained wide open, unblinking, eternal. There were moments of peace, times when the world outside seemed gentle again. Children chased kites across the square. Couples held hands beneath the linden tree. Merchants sang to attract customers. In these moments, I allowed myself to believe the war had truly gone. But then always came reminders. Sudden silence when someone mentioned a missing name. A shadow in the eyes of an old man passing by. A hesitation before laughter, as though joy required permission. And every time I looked to the window, it had seen it all. It had stored it all. It carried within its unblinking stare the proof that memory cannot be erased, only carried forward. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what would happen after me when my body gave in, when my notebook pages yellowed and decayed, when my name itself faded from the lips of neighbors. Would the window remain? Would it still gaze outward, keeping vigil over a road that had forgotten the sound of boots but remembered the silence they left behind? Would it still whisper to no one? I saw, I remember. I do not close my eyes. I began to imagine the window outliving everyone, outliving the town, outliving the very idea of war and peace. Standing alone among ruins, glass cracked but still open, wood splintered but still upright. Watching a road that had long since dissolved into dust. A witness without audience. A memory without bearer. And strangely, the thought did not frighten me. It comforted me, because it meant that even if the world forgot, something would still hold the truth on quiet nights. When the wind rattled the panes softly, I leaned close and whispered my gratitude. Thank you for watching when I could not bear to. Thank you for remembering when I longed to forget. Thank you for never closing your eyes, even when mine grew too heavy. The glass cooled my forehead as I rested it there, teat, and though no words came back, I felt less alone. Perhaps that is what the window has given me all along. Not merely memory, but companionship. The knowledge that someone, even if made of wood and glass, even if incapable of speech, has stood beside me through every silence, every shadow, every hesitant dawn. And so, as I sit here tonight, older still, with the moon spilling pale light across the floor, I feel no anger at the war that lingers in memory. I feel only the weight of being remembered and the strange peace that comes from knowing I do not carry it alone. The window carries it with me. The window has always carried it, and as long as its eyes remain open, perhaps the war truly has left, even if it has never gone. It has been said that time heals, but I have never truly believed it. Time does not heal. It only layers new days upon the old, new seasons upon the memories, new faces upon the ghosts. The pain remains pressed beneath like letters forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. And if you lean close enough, if you dare to search, you will still hear the rustle of those letters, still feel the weight of those memories. My window knows this better than I do. For decades now, it has watched time try to disguise itself as healing. It has watched streets repainted, houses repainted, shops reopened. It has seen children who once played with rocks as grenades grow into adults carrying baskets of apples. It has watched couples who once hid their affection beneath shadows now kiss openly in the square. Yes, time changes the face of things, but the window knows. Beneath the paint, beneath the smiles, the scars remain. I am older now. My hands tremble when I rest them on the sill. My breath fogs the glass more quickly, leaving small patches of mist that fade too soon. My reflection has changed. Lines around my eyes, silver in my hair, shoulders curved inward. Yet the window reflects me with the same clarity it once did when I was a child, pressing my forehead against it, watching soldiers pass. It does not soften its truth. It shows me as I am, just as it has shown the world outside for so long. I sometimes wonder whether the window feels pity. Can glass, can wood, can silence itself ache for the ones who stare too long into it? Or is it only me who assigns it this depth because I am unwilling to face the truth alone? These questions linger in the night, heavier than dreams. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, I saw an old man pause beneath the linden tree outside. He stood still, leaning on a cane, staring at the cobblestones as though they whispered to him. Something about his posture stirred memory in me. I leaned closer to the glass. His shoulders were bent in the same way my father's had been, though. This man was thinner, frailer, hollow in a different fashion. Still, the resemblance shook me. For a moment, I almost whispered, "Father," but of course, it was not him. My father had not returned from the war. He had walked into it with laughter and vanished into silence. Yet here stood this stranger, staring at the ground as though listening to footsteps long since faded. The window framed him perfectly, as though insisting I hold this image, this reminder that some shadows walk endlessly among us. He did not stay long. After a few minutes, he turned and shuffled away. But I remained, forehead pressed to the glass, heart racing, breath uneven. The window reflected my face back at me, pale and unsettled. It seemed to whisper, "Even in peace, the war walks beside us." That night, I could not sleep. I lit a candle and opened my old notebooks, the ones filled years ago with scribbles of everything the window and I had seen. The ink had faded, the paper had yellowed, but the words still lived. I read them, slowly, aloud, as though calling old ghosts into the room. A woman clutching a letter too tightly, a child refusing to play, a cap left on the road. Each line a shard of glass in my throat. The flame flickered, and I felt the window's gaze upon me, though its surface reflected only the candle's glow. "Do you remember too?" I asked silently. And though it did not speak, I knew the answer. It remembered. Always, seasons turned again. Winter returned, laying snow upon the roofs, quieting the world into a hush. I sat by the window often, watching. Flakes settle on the sill. Children played in the drifts, building figures that toppled and were rebuilt. Their laughter was lighter than the laughter of those before them, freer, unburdened. I wondered what it must feel like to laugh without the echo of silence pressing behind it. I would never know, but perhaps they would. Perhaps they must. Spring followed, and with it blossoms on the trees, fragile and hopeful. I pressed my palm against the glass, watching petals drift across the road like lost letters. Each one seemed to carry a message I could not read. The window caught their shadows, holding them briefly before releasing them back into the air. For a moment, I felt as though it was telling me, even fleeting beauty is worth remembering. And yet, with each season, I grew more aware of my own. Fading, my steps slowed, my nights grew longer. My body ached in ways that no candle, no blanket, no prayer could soothe. The world outside moved on, busier, louder, younger. Here, in this room, time stretched differently. The window and I remained in our vigil, guardians of memory while others forgot. One summer evening, I heard singing in a square, young voices, clear and bright, rising into the twilight. They sang a song I did not know, their melody carrying laughter I could not share. I sat by the window, listening, watching. Their faces glowed with lightness. Their eyes sparkled with futures they had not yet tested. For a moment, I envied them, not for their youth, not for their health, but for their unawareness. They had not watched a war leave through a window. They had not seen silence grow heavier than words. They did not know, and yet, perhaps that is good. Perhaps that is the only way forward for some not to know, so they might live freely without carrying the weight of endless remembering. I thought this, but then I glanced at the window. Its eyes remained unblinking, steady. Oh, it seemed to insist, forgetting is not freedom, it is surrender. I sighed, leaning back, torn between envy and duty, between wishing for ignorance and accepting the burden of memory. It was then I realized something new. The window had not only been a witness to the war, it had been a teacher. It had taught me the discipline of watching, the endurance of silence, the patience of memory. It had taught me that healing is not forgetting, but carrying with grace. I began speaking more often to it, aloud now, no longer only in whispers. I told it stories from my childhood. I told it of dreams I once had, of traveling beyond the valley, of seeing seas and mountains I had only read about. I told it of regrets, of joys, of secrets too delicate to share with another soul. Though it never replied, I felt lighter after each confession. One night, as the moon cast its pale glow across the floor, I said to the window, "When I am gone, will you remember me too? Will you hold my face in your glass the way you held the boy's glance, the cap on the road, the shadow of trains? Will you keep me here so that even if no one else recalls, you will?" The glass was cool beneath my fingertips, silent, but in its silence, I heard a promise. And so I rest easier now, knowing that my life too will be stored in its endless memory, that the window, which has never closed its eyes, will not close them, even when mine do. They say that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of quiet. I have lived long enough to know that quiet is not always peace. Sometimes quiet is only a mask, a surface stretched tight over trembling truths. And my window, which has seen everything, knows this too. The years after the war became decades. The road outside the house filled with new faces, then older ones, then younger. Again, life, like a tide, kept rising and receding, bringing in laughter, carrying away sorrow, leaving behind fragments on the shore of memory. The market swelled with voices once more. The linden tree spread its branches wider, shading generations of children who carved their initials into its bark. Houses gained new paint, brighter than the old. And yet, behind the brightness, the silence of what had happened remained invisible but enduring. I stayed by the window. Sometimes, people would wave to me. They saw me as the old man in the house on the corner, always sitting by the same pane of glass, as though fused to it. Some smiled kindly, some nodded politely, some avoided looking altogether, as if my stillness unsettled them. Perhaps they sensed what I carried, not in my arms, but in my eyes, in the way I pressed my palm against the glass, as though listening to its heart. The window itself grew older too, the wooden frame weathered, chipped by wind and rain. The glass bore faint scratches, thin lines like wrinkles, etched by years of dust, storms, and perhaps even tears. But it did not weaken. Its eyes remained wide, unblinking, unyielding, watching, always watching. I often wondered whether anyone else noticed how it watched. To others, it was only a window, a thing of wood and glass. But to me, it was alive, with memory deeper than any human could endure. I saw it hold onto moments the world forgot. I saw it cradle shadows like fragile relics, and I knew, without doubt, that it remembered more than I could bear alone. One winter evening, The snow fell thick and heavy. I saw something unusual. A group of children gathered beneath the linden tree, their cheeks flushed red, their laughter ringing clear. They carried lanterns, each glowing softly, casting golden circles against the snow. They began to sing, not carols I knew, but new songs, bright and simple. The sound carried upward, filling the night with warmth. I pressed my hand to the glass, leaning close, watching them. Their lanterns bobbed as they moved, their voices rising together. For a moment, the street seemed alive again, alive in a way it had not been since before the war. And yet, as I watched, I felt the window grow heavy, its glass fogged faintly beneath my breath. For, even in joy, the memory of silence clung like frost. I whispered, "Do you see them? Do you remember how it used to be?" The window said nothing, but its reflection gave me my answer. It showed me not only the children, but also the shadows of the soldiers who had once marched along that same road. Lanterns and rifles, laughter and silence, layered together on the glass like overlapping ghosts. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the children were still there, but the soldiers were gone. Still, I knew the window had not let them vanish. It had simply hidden them behind the present, storing them in silence. As years passed, my own body weakened. I could no longer walk far. Steps carried me only from bed to chair, chair to window, but I did not mind, for all I needed was here. Through the glass, I saw the seasons turn, the road change, the generations shift. Through the glass, I felt history breathing, not in books, not in speeches, but in the ordinary rhythm of people living, forgetting, remembering. All at once, I began speaking more often to the window, as if it were a friend. I told it stories of my father, of my mother, of the boy soldier whose eyes had brushed mine that day. I confessed regrets, whispered hopes, prayed silently into the glass. And though it never replied, its silence was not empty. It was listening, always listening. There were nights when I dreamed of leaving this house, of walking far beyond the road, of seeing seas and mountains I had never known. But even in these dreams, the window followed me. Wherever I went, I carried its gaze, its memory, its unblinking eyes. I would wake with the certainty that I was not meant to leave. My place was here, at the vigil. My duty was to remember with the window. One autumn morning, I awoke to find a crack in the glass, thin, sharp, like a vein of lightning, frozen in silence. My heart clenched. Cord, I touched it gently with my fingertip, afraid the window might shatter. At last, but it held. The crack did not spread. It was as though the window itself bore a scar now, visible proof of its long burden. I whispered, "You are like me, marked by time." Wounded, but still watching. The crack caught the light in strange ways. At dawn, it glowed faintly, a thin line of gold. At dusk, it darkened like a shadow. This reminded me each day that even the strongest witnesses are not invincible. Even silence, eternal as it feels, can fracture. And yet, like me, the window endured. As I grew weaker, I found myself thinking often of endings. Not only mine, but the window's too. Would it survive me? Would its gaze continue long after my eyes closed? Or would it, too, one day fall into silence, its glass shattering, its frame collapsing into dust? I could not know. And yet I hoped, I prayed that it would remain, that it would keep watching, keep remembering, even when no one else did. Because what is memory if not a window? A fragile pane through which we glimpse what is past, unable to change it, unable to step through it, only able to watch. And if that window breaks, what becomes of the past? One night, as rain tapped gently against the glass, I whispered a final request. If you outlive me, remember me too. Remember the boy who sat by you in silence. Remember the man who pressed his forehead to your glass. Remember my laughter, my tears, my whispers in the dark. Do not let me vanish. The rain streaked down the pane, blurring my reflection, carrying my face into shadows. But I knew the window had heard. It always heard, and with that, I closed my eyes, resting easier, comforted by the thought that even if the world forgets, the window will not. It will keep its vigil, will never close its eyes. They say that old age is a second childhood, but I have never believed that either. Childhood is filled with beginnings, with untested roads and laughter that does not yet know silence. Old age is different. It is not a beginning, but a layering of endings, quiet and heavy, one upon another, until the body bends beneath their weight. My window knows this, has watched me pass from boy to man to this, an old figure in a chair, eyes lined, hands trembling, yet still keeping vigil. Each morning I rise slowly, my bones stiff as the wooden frame that holds the glass. I shuffle to the window, and there I sit, as I always have. The road greets me with its usual rhythm, merchants setting up stalls, children running with satchels, women carrying baskets heavy with bread and fruit. Life continues, steady, ordinary. But the window, and I know that beneath this ordinary surface, history still breathes. Sometimes I catch sight of my reflection before I look through the glass. It startles me now. The boy who once pressed his forehead against the pane is gone. In his place stands a face carved by years, pale and fragile. And yet, behind my reflection, the window shows me the world unchanged, the road stretching on, the linden tree swaying, the seasons circling endlessly. My face alters, but its gaze does not. There are days when I imagine the window is holding all of me, every stage of my life. It's layered upon the glass like faint etchings. If someone looked close enough, perhaps they would see the child, the youth, the man, all pressed together in its silence. Perhaps the window remembers me better than I remember myself. One afternoon, as autumn leaves scattered across the cobblestones, I noticed a little girl standing beneath the linden tree. She wore a red scarf, bright against the fading world. She tilted her head upward, staring not at the branches, but at my window. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, as though she too sensed it was more than glass. I lifted my hand slowly, pressing my palm to the pane. To my surprise, she smiled and lifted her hand, too, mirroring me across the distance. For a moment, felt as though something passed between us, not words, not sound, but a quiet understanding. She could not know what I had seen. She had not heard the silence of trains or the heavy boots on the stones. She seemed to recognize that the window carried something. Her smile held no fear, only curiosity, perhaps even trust. Then her mother called, and she ran off, her red scarf trailing like a ribbon of fire in the autumn air. That night, I whispered to the glass, "Did you see her too? Did you feel how she looked at you as though you were alive?" The window, as always, did not reply. I thought of her gaze, and I wondered whether one day she would sit as I do, watching the road, carrying memory through the silence. Perhaps the window was already choosing its next companion. I began to think more often of inheritance, not of possessions. I have little to give, but of memory. What do we leave behind when we are gone, except for the fragments we have witnessed? The window has carried so much for me, but it cannot speak. Someone must remain to hear its silence, to understand its gaze. If not, then everything it remembers risks being lost, like water spilled on stone. I considered writing more in my notebooks, but my hands trembled too much now, my letters uneven, my ink smudged, and besides, paper fades, crumbles, burns. The window endures. Still, I feared, would it endure without me? Would anyone else sit by it, pressing their palm to the glass, whispering their fears, listening to its silence? Or Would it be left alone, staring outward with eyes wide, yet unseen? These questions troubled me more than death itself. And for death is a certainty, but being forgotten, that is a second, crueler death. One evening, as dusk painted the road in shades of blue and gold, I saw the old man again, the one who had reminded me of my father years ago. His hair was white now, his back more bent, his step slower. He leaned against the linden tree, breathing heavily, staring at the cobblestones. I pressed close to the window, watching him, feeling the pull of memory. Perhaps he too had his own window, his own archive of silence. Perhaps we were alike, two keepers of things too heavy to speak. After a long while, he lifted his head and looked toward my house. Our eyes did not meet directly. I was hidden by the glass, but I felt as though he saw me nonetheless. His lips moved faintly, forming words I could not hear. Then he turned, and with great effort, shuffled away. That night, I dreamed of my father again. I dreamed of his laughter echoing through the hall, his strong hands lifting me high, his voice calling my name. But then the dream shifted, and I saw him walking away, swallowed by soldiers, by trains, by silence. I woke with tears wet on my face, my hand pressed to the glass as though seeking him there. The window reflected me back, hollow-eyed, weary. "Do you remember him too?" I whispered. Of course it did. It remembered everything. The crack in the glass had grown slightly, still thin, but longer now, running like a vein down the pane. It caught the morning light, glinting faintly. I traced it with my fingertip, careful not to press too hard. It felt like a scar, fragile, yet unbroken. "You are like me," I told it again, a witness marked by time, yet still holding on. Sometimes, when I am very tired, I imagine what it will be like to leave this window. I imagine closing my eyes for the last time, the world fading not into darkness, but into silence. I imagine the window remaining open-eyed, unblinking, keeping vigil long after I am gone. And, though it saddens me, it also comforts me. For it means I am not the last witness. The memory will remain, even if I do not, and perhaps, one day, the little girl with the red scarf will return. Perhaps she will pause beneath the linden tree, look up, and feel the weight of the window's gaze. Perhaps she will sit where I have sat, whispering into the glass, listening to its silence. And in her presence, the window will continue, carrying both my memory and hers. Until then, I remain here, each day, each night, pressing my palm to the glass, whispering into its silence, keeping vigil with the only companion who has never left. Me? There comes a time in every life when the days begin to fold inward, like pages curling at the edges of an old book. The story continues, yes, but each chapter feels closer to the last. I feel that now. My bones ache with each morning. My steps are fewer, my breaths slower. And yet, through it all, the window remains unchanged. Its gaze does not tire. Its silence does not falter. If anything, it seems to grow more patient as I grow weaker, still preparing to keep the watch alone when I can no longer sit beside it. I spent nearly every hour here now. The chair by the window has molded itself to my shape, creaking beneath me like an old friend who knows my weight by heart. My notebooks rest on the table, filled with words I can barely read anymore, my handwriting shaky and faint. I sometimes flip through the pages, tracing the faded lines with my finger, but I find no need to add more. The window has recorded it. All my words are only echoes of what it has already stored. The road outside carries on. Children hurry to school in the mornings, their satchels bouncing, their laughter sharp as bells. Merchants arrange their goods, calling prices into the air. Women exchange greetings at the well, their voices lighter than in the days of silence. The linden tree stretches wider with each year, its branches arching protectively over the square. Life goes on louder, brighter, younger than I remember. And yet, In the stillness of night, when the road empties and shadows stretch long, know that beneath all this brightness lies the memory of silence. The window has not forgotten, and neither have I. One morning, as dawn spread pale light across the stones, I saw the little girl with a red scarf again. She was older now, taller, her steps more certain, her scarf replaced by a ribbon in her hair. She paused beneath the linden tree, tilting her head upward toward my house. For a moment, I thought she was looking at me, but then I realized she was looking at the window. I pressed my hand to the glass, slowly, carefully. To my surprise, she lifted her hand too, though she was far below, across the road. It was not a mere gesture this time, but something intentional, as though she remembered, as though she, too, had felt the gaze of the window and returned to acknowledge it. My heart stirred. Perhaps the inheritance I had feared leaving without air was already finding its way. That night, Ka whispered into the glass, "Do you see her? Do you know her as I do? Perhaps she is the one who will keep your silence after me." The window did not reply, of course, but its stillness felt different, not heavy, but calm, as though it agreed. Days blurred into one another. My body grew frailer, but my mind lingered sharp, sharpened by memory. Each creak of the road, each laugh of a child, each whistle of the wind pressed itself into me with unusual clarity. I wondered if this was what it meant to near the end, the world becoming both sharper and more distant, as though preparing to be left behind. The crack in the glass had deepened, stretched longer now, branching faintly like a river seen from above. I traced it often with my fingertip, careful not to press too hard. It reminded me of veins, of the fragile networks that carry life within us. The window, too, seemed alive in this way, its scars proof of endurance, its silence proof of strength. One evening, as rain fell steady and soft, I dreamed while awake. The droplets on the glass blurred the road into shifting shadows, and in those shadows I saw the past return. Soldiers marching, their boots heavy, trains grinding, their whistles hollow, my father's laughter distant and fading. The boy soldier's glance, lingering only for a breath. All of it layered upon the rain, shifting, dissolving, returning. I leaned closer, whispering, "You remember, don't you? Even when I cannot hold it all, you do." The window reflected my face back to me, pale and wet with tears, and behind it the rain fell like endless lines of memory. As weeks passed, I found myself thinking often of departure, not the wars, but mine. Death does not frighten me now. What frightens me is being forgotten, slipping into silence with no trace. Yet, each time this fear rises, I place my palm against the glass and feel comfort. For even if no one else remembers me, the window will. It will hold my reflection, my whispers, my years of watching. It will not close its eyes. Sometimes I imagine future generations walking the road outside. Children with bright scarves, merchants with baskets, lovers beneath the linden tree. They will not know me. They will not know the silence I carried. But they will pass by this house, and the window will still be here, gazing outward, holding it all. And perhaps, if they pause long enough, they will feel something, a weight, a whisper, a presence, and they will know, even if only faintly, that memory lives here. One afternoon, I heard singing again, young voices in the square, rising in a song of joy. I leaned close to the window, listening, letting their melody fill the room. It was different from the songs of my youth, brighter, freer, and yet, layered beneath, I heard the silence too, the silence the window had carried, the silence that never leaves. I closed my eyes, whispering, "Thank you for carrying it with me, for holding it all, but never closing your eyes." And in that moment, I felt lighter, for I knew I was not alone, and never had been. The window had kept vigil beside me all my life, and it would keep vigil long after. There is a peculiar weight to knowing that one's days are numbered. It's not in the sense that all lives end, that truth belongs to everyone, but in the sense that you can feel the nearness of your own ending, like footsteps approaching behind you on a quiet road. I feel it now. Each morning when I rise and shuffle to the chair by the window, I know that I am stepping closer to the final vigil. The window, however, does not know endings. It has watched too many beginnings, too many closings, to be deceived by such a word. To the window, there is only continuity, one season folding into another, one face replaced by the next, one silence layered upon the last. It does not sigh, it does not grieve, it does not falter, it simply watches. And in that endless watching, I find both comfort and sorrow. My body weakens daily. My hands tremble when I lift a cup of water from the table. My knees ache when I stand. Even the act of writing, once a solace, now feels beyond me. The notebooks lie unopened, gathering dust. Yet I do not mourn this, for I no longer need pen or page. The window has recorded more faithfully than I ever could. I sit here and press my palm to the glass, tracing the long crack that splits the pane. It stretches further now, a jagged vein across the surface. Sometimes I fear it will break, but it holds. Like me, it endures, scarred but unyielding. I whisper to it, we are alike, you and I both fractured, both aged, but still keeping. Watch, the road outside is as busy as ever. Children race past in the mornings, their laughter sharp and clear. Merchants arrange their stalls, calling prices, their voices rising like the song of birds. Lovers pause beneath the linden tree, fingers entwined, eyes bright with future's eye, will never see. And all of it, every moment, passes through the window's unblinking eyes. One afternoon, I saw her again, the girl with the red scarf, now older still. She walked with a friend, their laughter light and easy. She paused beneath the linden tree, just as she had years ago, and once more tilted her head upward toward my house. Her eyes lingered on the window, and for a moment I thought she might raise her hand again, but she only smiled faintly, as though acknowledging a presence, okay, and continued on her way. I pressed my palm to the glass, whispering, she remembers. Even if she does not know what she remembers, she feels it. Perhaps she will be the one after me. That night, I dreamed not of war, but of the window itself. In my dream, it spoke. Its voice was neither man's nor woman's, neither young nor old. It was like wind moving through reeds, like the hush of snow falling, like silence itself given shape. And it said, you will leave, but I will remain. You will close your eyes, but I will not. And through me, you will not be forgotten. I woke with tears on my cheeks, though I felt no sadness, only relief. Perhaps it was only my own heart speaking back to me, but it felt real. And in the morning, when the sun cast its golden light across the cracked glass, I believed. Days blur quickly now. I sleep often in a chair, waking to see the world outside shift in subtle ways, shadows lengthening, leaves falling, snow melting. Time folds into itself, but the window holds it steady. It refuses to let moments vanish. Sometimes I wonder if memory itself is a kind of window. We press our faces to it, staring outward into what has been unable to step through, unable to change what we see. We can only watch and remember. And just as my window has never closed its eyes, perhaps memory too never truly closes. It only waits for someone willing to keep watch. One evening, I saw a boy standing in the road, staring up at my house. He was small, perhaps 8 or 9, his hair unruly, his hands shoved into his pockets. He gazed at the window with a seriousness unusual for a child. For a moment, I felt a shiver, as though the boy soldier I once saw marching had returned. Not in uniform, but in this child's frame. I leaned close, whispering, "Do you see me? Do you feel what lives in this glass?" The boy did not move. He stared for a long time, then finally turned and ran off, his footsteps echoing faintly on the cobblestones. I sat back, shaken, my heart pounding. The window reflected my pale face, but behind it, for a moment, I thought I saw the shadow of the soldier again. Perhaps the boy was only curious, or perhaps, like the girl with the scarf, he felt the gaze of the window, carrying memory too heavy for its silence alone. The seasons turn relentlessly. Winter presses its frost against the pane, sketching white veins like fragile lace. Spring scatters blossoms across the sill, each petal a fleeting memory. Summer blazes golden light through the glass, filling the room with warmth. Autumn rains streak the pane, blurring the world into shifting shapes. Through it all, I sit and watch, as I've always done. I grow tired now, my eyes close more often, my breaths slower. Sometimes I feared that one day I will sleep in this chair and not wake again. But even this does not frighten me, for I know the window will remain open-eyed, carrying me in its silence. I whispered to it last night, "When I am gone, will you remember me? Will you hold my face in your glass the way you held the boy's glance, the torn cap, the shadows of trains? Will you keep me alive, even when I no longer breathe?" The crack in the glass caught the moonlight, glowing faintly like a line of silver. And though no words came, I felt the answer. Yes, it will remember. It always remembers. So I rest easier now. But even if the world forgets, even if no one speaks my name, the window will hold it. Hey, and through its unblinking eyes, I will never truly be gone. It is a strange thing to grow old beside an object that does not change in the same way you do. My body bends, my skin thins, my voice weakens, but the window remains scarred. Yes, cracked, weathered by rain and sun. Yet, still steadfast, its gaze has not faltered. Its silence has not softened. If anything, it grows heavier with each passing year, as though my fading strength is being transferred into its unblinking eyes. I spend nearly all my hours in this chair now. Walking has become a labor. Writing is beyond me. Even speaking feels like an effort at times, but watching that, I can still do. Watching is all I have ever done, with the window as my companion. And now, as my own eyes dim, I lean more heavily on its gaze. It sees what I no longer can. The crack in the glass has spread further. It runs across like a map, jagged and imperfect, yet still holding the pane together. I touch it often, tracing it with my fingertip, whispering, "You are like me, broken, yet still whole, wounded, yet still enduring." The crack glints in the light, silver at dawn, gold at dusk, black in the depth of night. It reminds me that scars are not weakness, but proof of survival. The road outside is alive with voices. Children race past, chasing balls, their shouts rising like birdsong. Merchants call out prices, their stalls colorful with apples, fabrics, spices. Lovers walk hand in hand beneath the linden tree, their laughter carrying into the twilight. Life moves forward, louder, brighter than I remember. And yet, beneath it all, the silence remains. The window, and I feel it, even when no one else does. One morning, as the sun rose pale and cool, I saw her again, the girl with the red scarf, now nearly a woman. She walked with friends, their chatter light, their eyes bright. Yet she paused beneath the linden tree, tilting her head upward toward the window. Her gaze lingered, not on me, but on the glass itself. She smiled faintly, as though acknowledging. An old friend, then moved on, I pressed my hand to the pane, whispering, "She remembers." Even if she does not know what she remembers, she feels it. Perhaps she will carry it after me. That night, I dreamed once more of the window speaking. Its voice was soft, like the hush of snow, like the weight of silence itself. It said, "Do not fear. Memory will not die with you. I will hold it, and others will feel it. Through me, you will remain." I woke with tears on my cheeks, but I was not sad. I felt comfort, a deep stillness, as though I no longer bore the weight alone. As days passed, I noticed something else. Children, younger still, pausing by the road. They would glance at the window, whispering to each other, pointing, sometimes daring to wave. Some laughed nervously, others stood quiet, but all looked with curiosity, as though sensing there was more here than wood and glass. I pressed my palm to the pane in greeting, though I doubt they could see me clearly. Still, I felt a connection, faint but real. The inheritance was already unfolding. I thought often of my father in those days, his laughter, his strong hands, his sudden absence. I wondered what he would think of me now, this old figure keeping vigil beside a window. Would he see weakness, or would he understand? I pressed my forehead to the glass, whispering, "Do you remember him too? You must. You saw him leave. You saw him never return." The glass cooled my skin, and though it did not answer, I knew it held his memory. Just as it held mine, the seasons continue their endless turning. Winter presses frost against the pane, delicate and fleeting. Spring scatters blossoms across the sill, petals drifting like forgotten letters. Summer floods the room with golden light, filling the glass with warmth. Autumn rains blurred the world into shifting shadows. Through it all, the window remains patient. Unblinking. My body weakens further. I sleep often in the chair, waking to find the world shifted shadows longer, leaves fallen, snow melted. Time folds into itself, days blurring into nights. Yet the window steadies me. It does not blur, it does not fade. Its gaze holds the road, the tree, the voices, the silences. It keeps watch when I cannot. One evening, as dusk settled, I whispered, my greatest fear, what if no one remembers me? What if I vanish, not only from this road, but from memory itself? The crack in the glass glowed faintly in the moonlight, a silver scar in the silence, and in that glow, I felt the answer. The window remembers, always remembers, and perhaps in the gaze of a girl with a red scarf, in the whispers of children, pausing on the road, in the curious eyes of strangers, the memory will continue, not as a story told, not as a name spoken, but as a feeling, a weight, a hush, a presence, enough to know that something happened here, something worth carrying. So I rest easier now. I no longer fear death as I once did, for I know that when my eyes close, the windows will not. It will remain, unblinking, unyielding, carrying me in its silence, and through it, I will never truly be gone. There is a slowness to my days now, as though time itself has grown cautious around me. It's unwilling to move too quickly, lest it break what little remains. I wake later, I move less, I eat little. The body narrows toward its end, folding in on itself like the final pages of a long book. And yet the window does not change. It remains upright, watchful, unblinking. Its silence has grown heavier, yes, but never fragile. I often think now that the window is more alive than I am. It breathes with the seasons, inhales the winds, exhales the rains. It blinks only when frost covers its eyes, and even then, the frost melts away, leaving the gaze as sharp as ever. It holds the road in its memory with a patience I can no longer muster. My eyes close often, but its eyes do not. My voice falters, but its silence speaks endlessly. The crack in the glass has spread further, like veins in aging skin. It runs jaggedly across the pane, branching here and there, a map of endurance written in scars. I trace it with trembling fingers and whisper, "You are me, and I am you." Both fractured, both nearing the end, but still here, still watching that outside, life carries on with a brightness that feels almost foreign. Children shout as they chase balls across the road. Merchants call their prices, the colors of their stalls vivid in the afternoon light. Couples linger beneath the linden tree, whispering words I cannot hear, laughing softly. Their lives are beginning as mine winds down. And through it all, the window records each moment, storing it in silence. Sometimes I wonder what will become of me when I am gone. Will anyone speak my name? Will anyone remember the boy who pressed his forehead to the glass, the man who whispered into its silence? Or will I vanish entirely, folded into dust, forgotten as though I never was? Each time this fear grips me, I press my palm to the pane, and I feel its coolness steady me. For the window remembers. It remembers everything. The soldiers, the trains, the silences, the shadows, the laughter, the tears. And it remembers me. It will keep me, even when no one else does. I dream more often now. Dreams of the past, vivid and relentless. I dream of my father's laughter, his sudden absence, the hollow echo it left behind. I dream of the boy soldiers, glance brief and piercing, etched into the glass. I dream of the torn cap on the road, the silence of trains passing in the night. I wake with tears, my chest heavy, but I no longer resist them. These dreams are not curses, they are reminders, proof that memory still breathes within me, even as my body falters. One night, I dreamed of the window itself. It stood alone in a field of silence, no house around it, no walls, no roof, only the window, upright, gazing outward into an endless horizon. And in its glass, I saw my own reflection, not old, not young, not broken, not whole, simply me, eternal, unchanging, remembered. The window spoke, its voice like the hush of snow. You will not vanish. You are here, and here you will remain. I woke, trembling, not with fear, but with peace. For perhaps that is the truth. We do not remain in names or stories, but in the objects that witness us. And for me, it is the window, the girl with the red scarf, now nearly grown, passed again one morning. She paused beneath the linden tree, glanced up and smiled faintly. She raised her hand, not in a wave, but in acknowledgement, as though greeting an old companion. My heart stirred. Perhaps she feels it too. Perhaps she senses the memory that lives in the glass. I whispered into the pane, she will carry it, won't she? When I am gone, she will pause here and she will feel you. She will not know my name, but she will know I was here. The window, silent as always, seemed to agree. Its crack glowed faintly in the afternoon light, silver like a promise. I sleep more now. Sometimes I drift off in the chair, waking to find hours gone. The world outside shifted. Shadows stretch longer, leaves scatter further, snow melts into puddles. Con slips easily from my grasp, but I do not fear it, for even when I sleep, the window keeps watch. It never closes its eyes. There is a slowness to my days now, as though time itself has grown cautious around me, unwilling to move too quickly lest it break what little remains. I wake later, I move less, I eat little. The body narrows toward its end, folding in on itself, like the final pages of a long book, and yet the window does not change. It remains upright, watchful, unblinking. Its silence has grown heavier, yes, but never fragile. I often think now that the window is more alive than I am. It breathes with the seasons, inhales the winds, exhales the rains. It blinks only when frost covers its eyes, and even then, The frost melts away, leaving the gaze as sharp as ever. It holds the road in its memory with a patience I can no longer muster. My eyes close often, but its eyes do not. My voice falters, but its silence speaks endlessly. The crack in the glass has spread further, like veins in aging skin. It runs jaggedly across the pane, branching here and there, a map of endurance written in scars. I trace it with trembling fingers and whisper, "You are me, and I am you." Both fractured, both nearing the end, but still here, still watching. Outside, life carries on with a brightness that feels almost foreign. Children shout as they chase balls across the road. Merchants call their prices, the colors of their stalls vivid in the afternoon light. Couples linger beneath the linden tree, whispering words I cannot hear, laughing softly. Their lives are beginning as mine winds down, and through it all, the window records each moment, storing it in silence. Sometimes I wonder what will become of me when I am gone. Will anyone speak my name? Will anyone remember the boy who pressed his forehead to the glass? The man who whispered into its silence? Or will I vanish entirely, folded into dust, forgotten as though I never was? Each time this fear grips me, I press my palm to the pane, and I feel its coolness steady me. For the window remembers. It remembers everything. The soldiers, the trains, the silences, the shadows, the laughter, the tears, and it remembers me. It will keep me even when no one else does. I dream more often now, dreams of the past, vivid and relentless. I dream of my father's laughter, his sudden absence, the hollow echo it left behind. I dream of the boy soldiers, glance, brief and piercing, etched into the glass. I dream of the torn cap on the road, the silence of trains passing in the night. I wake with tears, my chest heavy, but I no longer resist them. These dreams are not curses. They are reminders, cute, that memory still breathes within me, even as my body falters. One night, I dreamed of the window itself. Teed stood alone in a field of silence. No house around it, no walls, no roof. Only the window, upright, gazing outward into an endless horizon. And in its glass, I saw my own reflection. Not old, not young, not broken, not whole. Simply me, eternal, unchanging, remembered. The window spoke, its voice like the hush of snow. You will not vanish. You were here, and here you will remain. I woke, trembling, not with fear, but with peace. Or perhaps that is the truth. We do not remain in names or stories, but in the objects that witness us. Okay? And for me, it is the window, the girl with the red scarf, now nearly grown, passed again one morning. She paused beneath the linden tree, glanced up, and smiled faintly. She raised her hand, not in a wave, but in acknowledgement, as though greeting an old companion. My heart stirred. Perhaps she feels it too. Perhaps she senses the memory that lives in the glass. I whispered into the pane, "She will carry it, won't she? When I am gone, she will pause here, and she will feel you. She will not know my name, but she will know I was here." The window, silent as always, seemed to agree. Its crack glowed faintly in the afternoon light, silver like a promise. I sleep. More now. Sometimes I drift off in the chair, waking to find hours gone. The world outside shifted. Shadows stretch longer. Leaves scatter further. Snow melts into puddles. Time slips easily from my grasp, but I do not fear it, for even when I sleep, the window keeps watch. It never closes its eyes. One evening, as dusk settled, I pressed my forehead to the glass and whispered, "When I am gone, remember me. Hold my reflection, my whispers, my years of vigil." Do know there comes a stage in life when each day feels like borrowed time. I feel that now. My steps are slower, my breaths shorter, my voice softer. The body bends toward its ending, as all bodies must. But still, Each morning, I drag myself to the chair by the window, not out of habit anymore, but out of duty. Tea has watched for me all these years. How could I abandon it now? The window itself seems more alive than ever. Its crack stretches further, branching faintly like a river across the glass, yet it holds steady. Sunlight catches in its scars, glinting silver and gold. Rain streaks along its face, blurring the world beyond into shifting watercolors. Frost paints delicate veins in winter, like ghostly hands pressed against the other side. And through it all, the window remains unblinking. It has never closed its eyes. I lean closer now, pressing my forehead to the glass more often. My reflection startles me, pale-lined, eyes hollowed by age. Yet behind my reflection, the road lives on. Children still laugh as they chase each. Other merchants still call out prices. Couples still linger beneath the linden tree. Life continues, bright and unyielding, even as I fade. The window shows me both truths at once, the fading of myself and the endurance of the world. I dream often in the chair now. My sleep is shallow, my dreams vivid. I dream of soldiers marching, their boots shaking the cobblestones. I dream of trains screaming in the night, their silence heavier than their sound. I dream of my father's laughter, suddenly silenced, glancing toward me for a heartbeat before vanishing forever. And always, I dream of the window standing alone, upright, eternal, its gaze carrying all the memories I cannot hold. Sometimes I wake with tears drying on my cheeks. I no longer resist them. They are not sorrow, but release, proof that memory still breathes in me, even as my body falters. The girl with the red scarf, now a young woman, passes more often. Each time she pauses beneath the linden tree, looking up toward the window. Sometimes she smiles, sometimes she only stares. Once, she lifted her hand slightly, as though in greeting. My heart stirred. She does not know my name. She does not know my story, yet she feels it, the weight that lingers in the glass. The inheritance is already shifting. One afternoon, I whispered into the pane, "She will carry it, won't she? When I'm gone, she will pause here and she will feel me. She will know, even without knowing." The crack glowed faintly in the sunlight, silver like a promise. I took it as my answer. My strength fades daily. I eat little, I sleep often. The chair feels more like a cradle now, rocking me gently between waking and dreaming. Sometimes I think I will not rise from it again. And strangely, I am at peace with that, for if I must die anywhere, let it be here before the window that has carried me all my life. One night, as the moon hung heavy, I whispered my last great fear. What if I vanish entirely? What if even you forget me? The window did not reply with words. It never has. But the moonlight caught in its crack, glowing faintly, steady and sure. And in that glow, I felt its promise. I will not forget. I cannot. I pressed my palm to the glass, my breath fogging faintly, and whispered, "Then I am not afraid anymore." The seasons turn relentlessly. Winter's frost sketches the pane. Spring scatters blossoms across the sill. Summer floods the room with golden light. Autumn rains blurred the world into shifting shadows. I grow weaker, but the window remains steady. My eyes close more often now, but its eyes do not. My voice falters, but its silence continues to speak. I am nearing the end. I know this, but I do not feel alone, for I have the window, my companion, my witness, my memory. And when I am gone, it will remain unblinking, carrying me in its silence. Perhaps one day, the girl with the red scarf will pause again. Perhaps she will press her hand to the glass. Perhaps she will feel me there, faint but present, etched into the memory the window refuses to release. She will not know my name. She will not know my story, but she will know that someone was here. Someone watched, someone remembered, someone whispered into the silence, and that will be enough. So I rest, easier now. I no longer fear death, for it is only the closing of my eyes. The windows will not close. It will remain, keeping vigil, keeping me alive in the only way that matters, in memory and through it. I will never truly be gone. Let me vanish. The glass cooled my skin, and though no words came, I felt the answer. It will remember. It always remembers. And so I rest easier. I no longer fear the silence of death, for even if my eyes close, the windows will not. And through it, I will endure. There are mornings now when I wake and wonder how many more I will see. The body has grown thin. My chest rises and falls with effort, and my voice is little more than a whisper. Even so, each day I gather what little strength remains to sit before the window. It feels less like a choice and more like a final devotion. The world beyond the glass is no longer mine to walk, but still mine to watch. The window itself holds steady, though the crack in its pane has deepened, branching faintly like a river across a map. Sunlight glints in it by day, moonlight by night, turning it into a scar that gleams rather than fades. I trace it often with trembling fingers, whispering, "You are me, wounded but holding, broken but whole." Nearing the end, but still watching. Outside, the road is alive with its usual rhythm. Children hurry to school, their laughter piercing the morning air. Merchants arrange their stalls with bright fabrics and ripe fruit. Women greet each other with baskets in hand, voices warm. Lovers pause beneath the linden tree, whispering softly. All of it continues without me, as it should. And yet, the window ensures I am part of it still. Through its gaze, I live within what I can no longer touch. I dream more often now, dozing in the chair, my body too tired to remain awake. Dreams of the past come vividly. Soldiers marching, their boots loud, trains screaming in the night. My father's laughter suddenly silenced, the boy soldier's glance etched into the glass forever. I wake sometimes with tears drying on my face, but I no longer resist them. They are not sorrow, but release. Proof that memory is still alive in me, even as I fade. The girl with the red scarf, now a woman, passes often. Each time she pauses, beneath the linden tree, her eyes rising toward the window. Sometimes she smiles, sometimes she only gazes. Once, she raised her hand slightly, as though in greeting. My heart stirred. She does not know my name, my story, my silence. She feels something, the presence that lingers in the glass. The inheritance is already passing. One afternoon, I pressed my palm to the pane and whispered, "When I am gone, will you carry me to her? Will you let her feel what I have left here?" The crack glowed faintly in the sunlight, silver as a promise. I took it as my answer. Nights are longer now. I wake often, my breath shallow, my body restless. The moonlight spills across the floor, catching in the glass, making it glow faintly. In those hours, I whisper into the silence, "Do not let me vanish. Remember me, even when I no longer sit here. Hold my face, my whispers, my vigil. Keep me alive in your gaze." The window never replies, but its silence holds me steady. I know it remembers. It has always remembered. I am not afraid of death anymore. It is only the closing of my eyes. The windows will not close. It will remain open, unblinking, holding me in its silence. Perhaps one day the woman with the red scarf will pause again. Perhaps she will press her hand to the glass. Perhaps she will feel me there, faint but present, alive in memory. She will not know my name. She will not know my story. But she will know that someone was here, watching, remembering, whispering into silence. And that will be enough. So I rest easier now. My breaths are shallow, my body weak, but I am not afraid. For I know that when I am gone, the window will keep vigil, and through it, I will never truly be gone. I do not measure my life in days anymore. The calendar has lost its meaning. The seasons turn, the shadows shift, the road fills and empties. But my time has narrowed into breaths, into moments, into the simple rhythm of rising each morning to sit before the window. This is all that remains of me now. The chair, the glass, the silence between us. The crack in the pane has widened, its branches across like veins in old skin, fragile yet enduring. Sometimes I fear the glass will break entirely, shattering into silence. But it does not. It holds, just as I hold. Scarred, weakened, near the end, yet still unbroken. Press my trembling hand against it each day and whisper, we are alike. Okay, we have carried memory beyond what was asked of us. Okay, we are still here. My reflection startles me now. My face is gaunt, my eyes sunken, my hair thin and silver. I scarcely recognize the boy who once pressed his forehead to this same glass, the young man who whispered his fears into it, the weary figure who begged it never to forget. Yet, behind my reflection, the road remains bright with life. Children race past, shouting their laughter sharp and wild. Merchants call out their wares, colors vivid in the sun. Lovers pause beneath the linden tree, their hands entwined. The world endures, unchanged in its rhythm, even as I fade, and through it, all the window watches. It does not pity me, it does not comfort me, it simply remembers. And in that remembering, I find comfort enough. I dream more vividly than ever now. Dreams of the war return with sharpness, soldiers marching, their boots echoing on the stones, trains screaming in the night, shadows slipping through silence, my father's laughter fading into nothing. But I also dream of gentler things, my mother humming at night, blossoms drifting across the road, children singing in the square. The girl with the red scarf smiling faintly as she looked upward, and always, always, the window stands within. These dreams, unblinking, holding it all. One night, I dreamed that I pressed my hand to the glass, and it pressed back, not with wood, not with coldness, but with warmth, as though the silence itself had become a hand, steadying mine. I woke with tears on my cheeks, whispering, "You will hold me when no one else can, won't you?" And though it did not speak, I knew the answer. The young woman with the red scarf, now no longer a girl at all, passed again recently. She paused beneath the linden tree, her gaze rising toward the window. This time, she did not smile. She simply stood still, her eyes steady, as though searching for something. I pressed my palm to the pane, though I doubt she saw me. Still, I felt a connection, faint but undeniable. Perhaps she senses the weight in the glass. Perhaps she feels me there already, half vanished, yet still present. I whispered, "It will be you, won't it? You who carries this after me." The crack in the glass glowed faintly in the evening light, silver as a promise. The nights are longer. Now, filled with restless silence, I wake often, gasping, my chest tight. The moon spills across the floor, catching in the crack, making the window glow faintly, like a lantern. I sit with it, whispering my final thoughts. Do not let me vanish. Remember me, even when I am no longer here. Hold me in your silence, as you have held everything else, and though no words come, I feel the answer. The window remembers. It has always remembered. Sometimes, as I drift into sleep, I imagine myself already gone. My body slumped in the chair, my eyes closed, my breath still. Yet the window remains upright, its gaze unbroken. The road continues, children laughing, merchants shouting, lovers pausing beneath the linden tree. Life carries on, and the window holds me still, etched faintly into its glass. A whisper in its silence. I am not afraid anymore. Death is not darkness. It is only the closing of my eyes. The windows will not close. It will remain, watching, carrying me forward, so I rest in peace, even while still alive. For I know that when I am gone, I will not be forgotten. I will live in the silence of the glass, in the unblinking eyes of the window that has watched the war leave, but has never closed its gaze. There is a quietness inside me now that is unlike any silence I have ever known. Okay? It is not the silence of war, heavy and suffocating. It is not the silence of grief, sharp and aching. It is a deeper silence, one that feels like the stillness before a final breath, the pause before a last step. My body grows weaker by the hour. I sleep more than I wake. And yet, each time I open my eyes, I turn to the window. I cannot imagine facing the end anywhere else. The crack in the glass has widened. It cuts across the pane like lightning frozen in time. At dawn, it glows gold. At dusk, silver. At night, black as the shadows. I trace it with trembling fingers, whispering, "We are nearly done, you and I, but you will go on. You will keep watching, even when I cannot." My reflection is barely recognizable now. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, a face carved thin by years. And yet, behind that face, the world continues. Children shouting, merchants calling, lovers laughing. Beneath the linden tree, the window shows me both truths at once, my ending and the endurance of life. And somehow, seeing them together makes the ending easier to bear. I dream constantly now. Sometimes I do not know if I am dreaming or awake. In these dreams, the war returns, soldiers marching, trains screaming, silence pressing. But gentler, memories come too. My father's voice, my mother's lullabies, blossoms drifting across the road. Children singing in the square. And always, always, the window stands in the center, unblinking, eternal, holding it all. One night, in dream or vision, I saw myself reflected in the glass, not as I am now, but as every version of myself at once. The boy pressing his forehead to the pain, the young man whispering his fears, the old figure watching silently, all layered together, alive within the memory of the window. I woke with tears on my face, whispering, "You hold all of me, don't you?" Every age, every breath, every silence. And though no words came, I knew it was true. There is a softness in my days now, as though time itself has grown gentle with me. I am weaker than ever, my steps uncertain, my breaths shallow, my hands trembling too much to hold even a cup steadily. And yet, each morning, I still make my way to the chair by the window. It takes longer, it takes more effort, but I go. For I know that here, before this glass, I am not fading. Here I am remembered. The crack in the pane has widened further. It branches like a tree across the glass, fragile but firm. Sunlight catches in it by day, moonlight by night, turning it into something almost luminous. Sometimes I think the window itself is alive, its scars glowing like veins of memory. I trace them with a finger too thin, whispering, "You carry me, don't you? Even as I weaken, you remain strong. Even as I fade, you keep me whole." My reflection is nearly a stranger now, a hollow face, pale and lined, eyes shadowed, hair thin as cobweb. But the road beyond is full of brightness. Children laughing, merchants calling, lovers smiling beneath the linden tree. The window shows me both truths at once, my body's decline and the world's endurance. And somehow, the coexistence of both makes me calm, for it proves that life will continue after me, just as it must. I dream almost constantly. Sometimes I cannot tell where dream ends and waking begins. In dreams, I see my father again, his laughter echoing, his figure walking away. I see the boy soldier's glance, quick but piercing. I see trains screaming through the night, their silence louder than their sound. But I also see gentler things, petals drifting across the road, children singing in the square, the girl with the red scarf smiling faintly. And always the window is there, upright, unblinking, eternal. One night I dreamed that I died. My body slumped in a chair, eyes closed, breath gone. But the window remained. It glowed faintly in the moonlight, its cracked silver as a scar. And in its glass, my reflection still lingered, not gone, not erased, but present, live in silence. I woke with tears on my cheeks, not of sorrow, but of peace, for perhaps that is how it will be. My body gone, but my presence alive in the gaze of the window that never closes. The young woman with the red scarf passes often now. She pauses beneath the linden tree, her eyes lifting toward the window. Sometimes she smiles, sometimes she only gazes. Once she raised her hand as though in greeting. I pressed my palm weakly to the glass, whispering, "You will carry this, won't you? You will feel me even when I am gone." The crack glowed faintly, and I knew the answer. Children paused too, pointing, whispering, sometimes waving. They sense something in the silence, even if they cannot name it. I press my hand to the glass in return, though my strength is little now. Still, the connection is there. The inheritance is already shifting. Nights are long, my body restless, my breath shallow. The moonlight spills across the floor, catching in the glass, making it glow faintly like a lantern. I whisper my final requests. Remember me, hold me, do not let me vanish. The window answers only in silence, but I trust that silence more than any words. Sometimes I imagine myself already gone, my body still in the chair, my eyes closed. Yet the window remains unblinking. The road continues outside, children laughing, merchants shouting, lovers lingering. And within the glass, my reflection still lives, faint but present, alive in memory. I am not afraid. Death is no longer an end. It is only the closing of my eyes. The windows will not close. It will remain, watching, carrying me forward. So, I rest gently now. My breaths shallow, my body frail, but my heart unafraid. For I know that when the end comes, I will not vanish. I will live in the silence of the glass, in the unblinking eyes that never closed, even when the war left. Even when I do, I knew it would come, and now it has. The final stretch of days, perhaps hours, perhaps only moments. My body is lighter than air, as though it could dissolve into dust with a single sigh. My chest rises and falls unevenly, each breath a question rather than a certainty. My hands tremble too much to hold even themselves. Yet still, I sit before the window. I have always known this is where I would end, not in bed, not surrounded by others, but here, beside the only companion that has never left me. The crack in the pane glows faintly. Sunlight catches in it by day, moonlight by night, turning it into something more than a scar. It is a vein of memory, alive, pulsing with everything we have carried together. I trace it with what little strength remains, whispering, "You are me, and I am you. When I am gone, you will still be here, and through you, so will I." My reflection is almost gone now. The face in the glass is thin, pale, hollowed. My eyes are dim, barely able to focus. And yet, behind that fading figure, the road remains bright. Children laugh as they run past. Merchants call their prices. Lovers pause beneath the linden tree. Life continues, louder and lighter than ever. And the window shows me both truths at once, my vanishing and the endurance of the world. And in that coexistence, I find peace, dreams, and waking blur into one now. I dream of my father, of his laughter and his sudden silence. I dream of my mother humming at night. I dream of soldiers marching, of trains screaming, of shadows pressing against the air. I dream of petals drifting across the road, of children singing in the square, of the girl with the red scarf smiling faintly as she looked upward. And always, always, I dream of the window. It stands unblinking, eternal, carrying it all. One night, half in dream, half in waking, I saw the window alone in a field of silence. No house, no walls, no roof. Only the window, upright, gazing into eternity. And in its glass, I saw myself, not young, not old, not fading, not broken, simply present, alive in memory, live in silence. I whispered, that is enough, to remain here, even faintly, even namelessly, to be remembered, not as a story, but as a presence. The window said nothing, but its silence glowed, and I knew it was true. The young woman with the red scarf passes often now. She pauses beneath the linden tree, her gaze steady, her eyes searching. Sometimes she smiles, sometimes she only stares. I can no longer lift my hand, but I feel her connection nonetheless. She does not know me, but she feels me. She feels the memory in the glass. The inheritance has already begun. Children point, whisper, sometimes wave. They laugh nervously, as though sensing something in the silence they cannot name. And I know that even when I am gone, they will feel it too. It's not my name, not my story, but the weight of memory. Enough to know that someone was here, that someone kept vigil, that someone whispered into the silence. The nights are longest now, my breaths shallow, my body weak. The moonlight spills across the floor, catching in a crack, making the window glow faintly like a lantern. I whisper my last words into the silence. Do not let me vanish. Hold me. Keep me alive in your gaze. Never close your eyes. The window does not answer, but I feel its promise. It has never failed me. It will not fail me now. And so I close my eyes. My chest rises once more, then falls. Perhaps it will rise again, perhaps not. It does not matter, for I know that the window remains upright, unblinking, carrying me forward. Outside, children will still laugh, gents will still call, lovers will still pause beneath the linden tree. Life will go on, and the window will watch, as it always, as it will hold me in its silence, keep me etched faintly in its glass. And through it, I will never truly be gone. The war left, but the window never closed its eyes. Neither will I.